Alright, go for it.
Twinkle, twinkle.
I thought you were going to do ABC.
L, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K,
It's about time, Nick. In the early 1900s, acclaimed inventor and electrical genius Nikola Tesla invented alternating current power, otherwise known as AC. However, he did not suggest that we use the methods of power transfer that we still use today, i.e. wires, power transfer stations, etc. Shortly after his discovery of alternating current, he discovered the method used by the universe and Mother Nature herself. Wireless transfer of power without loss. He announced that not only could he give power to every person on the planet at the time, and power bases as far away as Mars and farther, but he also said that he could do it for free. After announcing this, his financial backer, J.P. Morgan, immediately announced that he was pulling the funding from Nikola Tesla's work, reportedly stating, "You can't put a meter on free." After Tesla had proven that he could speak to naval commanders and submarines as far away as Italy from the eastern coast of the United States, and after being present at such groundbreaking inventions as the original cellular telephone in the early 1900s, he also had a hand in those things. Regardless of this, his name was smeared after he announced that he was receiving radio signals from off of the planet, from outer space. It is now known in common knowledge that celestial bodies give off radio signals. After his death, his inventions and all of his research were confiscated and relegated to the dustbin and to myth due to the wholehearted embracing of the theory of entropy by the scientific community. Fast forward to 2007, MIT announces that they have discovered a way to transfer power wirelessly. Fast forward again to 2011, and now the panels required to receive wireless transfer of power are less than a foot across and getting smaller. Amongst others, the point of this story is to set up one common sense question. Considering that this technology was available at the turn of the century before the last turn of the century, how far behind is the public's knowledge of the technology that is actually available? Answer: a minimum of 110 years. Multiplied by unknown and unannounced advancements made, that assumably were made, in between now and the time of Tesla. It is Monday, February 14th, 2011, on the west coast of North America. I am Davis. Welcome to this 5th edition of Common Sense News that will be mostly what is known as cinema verite, or videos presented without comment by us at CSN, save the opening story and one other. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Common sense, noun. Sound practical judgment that is independent of specialized knowledge, training, or the like. Good sense and sound judgment in practical matters, normal native intelligence. Common Sense. Published in 1776, Common Sense challenged the authority of the British government and the royal monarchy. The plain language that Paine used spoke to the common people of America, and was the first work to openly ask for independence from Great Britain. Common Sense News.
Ironically, however, the very innovations that are making possible dramatic improvements in human well-being are also creating new problems which raise the specter of an alarming and possibly catastrophic disaster to the biosphere we live in. And herein lies the dilemma that we all face. Let me illustrate. Improved public health has caused the world's infant mortality rate to decline by 60% over the last 40 years. In the same period, the world's average life expectancy has increased from 46 years in 1950s to 63 years today. This is a development which, as individuals, we can only applaud. However, the result of these positive measures is a world population that has risen during the same short period of time geometrically to almost 6 billion people and could easily exceed 8 billion by the year 2020. The negative impact of population growth on all of our planetary ecosystems is becoming appallingly evident. The rapid growing exploitation of the world's supply of energy and water is a matter of deep concern, and the toxic byproducts of widespread industrialization have increased atmospheric pollution to dangerous levels. Unless nations will agree to work together to tackle these cross-border challenges posed by population growth, overconsumption of resources, and environmental degradation, the prospects for a decent life on our planet will be threatened. The recent UN meeting in Cairo is appropriately focused on one of these key issues, population growth. But the controversies which have erupted at the conference illustrate the problem of coming to grips with issues that are deeply divisive and which have a profound moral dimension. The United Nations can and should play an essential role in helping the world find a satisfactory way of stabilizing world population and stimulating economic development in a manner that is sensitive to religious and moral considerations. Economic growth is, of course, an inevitable corollary of a growing population and is essential to improve standards of living. But without careful coordination, unrestrained economic growth poses further threats to our environment. This was a major subject of discussion at the conference in Rio de Janeiro on the environment 2 years ago. The focus then was on sustainable growth and global development. It was pointed out at the conference that growth is most efficiently managed by the private sector, but regulation of the process by national governments and international bodies is also needed. And once again, the United Nations should certainly be among the catalysts and coordinators of this process.
It was the teacher's manual. It was basically telling a teacher what she should be doing with this particular global education course. And it said right there that it was humanistic philosophy, and anybody who knows what the Humanist Manifesto is, a lot of people don't know. They think humanism is a good, wonderful thing, humane, we'll be nice to our neighbors, and you love everybody. They have no idea that the Humanist Manifesto is the plan, the total international takeover, atheistic control plan for the UN. That's what it is. And anything goes, tolerance of everything, no matter what, no religion, no sovereignty, world government, get rid of the military, get rid, it's a basic agenda. And it's been around for a long time, and major signers were B.F. Skinner, who's, I could make a pigeon a high achiever by reinforcing it on a proper schedule, which is the method being used in the schools across the board now, being used in our communities now. You do good deeds, the police, community-oriented policing system gives you a little medal if some parents calling me and saying, we can't understand, why on earth are they putting in the comprehensive health education in this community, because we don't have any pregnancies, we don't even have problems with the kids drinking or drugs or anything. Why are they putting it here? And I said, because you don't. The goal is to get you to have the problem. And when they can crash the morals and values, and they can crash the academics, then they can impose the totalitarian system, which is George Bush is putting in right now. Clinton before, Bush Sr. before, Reagan before, Carter before, whoever, Nixon, they've all been in it. I mean, all the way pre-World War I, we have had, every single president has had the same agenda. Might as well make that clear. And I mean, sometimes the end of an interview comes and the guy will say, well, do you have anything you want to say? And I say, yeah, there's only one thing you have to remember when you go home, and this is easy. There isn't any difference between the Republican and the Democratic parties at the top. And this has been planned ever since the late 1800s. In the late 1800s, when the financial elite got together, and they said, if we're going to have this international system, we're going to have to control both parties at the top, so that when the voters go to the polls, they'll pull a thing, and they won't know that it doesn't make any difference who they vote for. They're going to get they won't know that. And that's the most important thing for Americans to remember right now. It doesn't make any difference. I mean, people thought that George Bush was going to be a good Christian conservative coming. They should have known better. They should have known that he's not far from his father or his grandfather. But they didn't want to listen. I mean, if I said that, they'd say, oh, we're conspiracy. It's another subject. Of course it's conspiracy. It's the only country in the world that doesn't accept the idea of conspiracy. The only country in the world. Now, I've lived all over the world. All other foreigners and people, and I don't care, you've traveled enough. There's never been anything that happened in this world politically that wasn't a conspiracy. Academics to total brainwashing and the Soviet polytech system, school to work, Cuban system, German system, where the children have absolutely no choice in their future occupation. They start training them, in 3rd, 4th grade for what they're going to be. The agreement is made between industry and government. That's Soviet system if people don't know it. Of course, they don't have free enterprise industry, but they have industry. And that's part of the Soviet plan, right, the platform. And the same thing here, now with partnerships. To see where the values were, put them through the program, ask them all about mom and dad, what goes on at home, what's this, what's that, all to do with their behavior and attitudes. And after the program's finished, post-test to see if it worked. That is going on day in and day out in the American public school system. And when parents and whoever hear about test scores, assessment, etc., don't think that's traditional academics. It isn't. The mandated federal test, which came out of my office as well, the National Assessment for Education Progress, is 60% politically correct. So when you hear that your children in your state haven't done well on it, maybe you should say, I'd like to see the test, rather than just assuming that anything coming out of the United States Department of Education is anything other than plain evil. It's a Marxist factory. Or out of the White House saying, being excused by the public as, oh well, it's not his fault. It's not Bush's fault. It's Karl Rove, or it's someone else, or he doesn't know what's going on. Look, okay, if you don't know what's going on, you shouldn't be in the White House. He knows he's not particularly bright, George Bush, but he's doing an awfully good job for those who want to take us down. You can't say that he isn't doing a wonderful job, because Iraq was never meant to work the way we were told. They have to destroy the Middle East first in order to restructure it as a region. Okay, you asked about regions? All right, let's go back to regions.